Hello again, watch friends, welcome back. On my recent trip to Germany, Glashutte specifically, I visited a brand that doesn't get much exposure in the United States. Now, I'm a German on both sides of my family, belong to a German club, and even have German cats, Hansel and Gretel. However, I am terrible at pronouncing German words, so here goes. The brand is Nautische Instrument Muhle Glashutte. In other words, Nautical Instruments Muhle Glashutte. They have a long history of making nautical clocks and precision instruments for measurement and manufacturing. In fact, they just celebrated their 150th year. Let me tell you a little bit about the brand, which henceforth I'll call simply Muhle, so as not to mangle their German name. Nautical Instruments Muhle Glashutte started out as a manufacturer of marine chronometers and marine time systems. That's why many of their watch models have a nautical origin. Over the last 150 years and through 5 generations, the Muhle family has weathered economic challenges, a couple of world wars, post-war German nationalism, and German unification. The company was founded in 1869 by Robert Muhle, although the family itself had been in the Glashutte region for more than 700 years. Muhle initially produced speedometers and rev counters in the earliest 20th century, but continued throughout the following decades making precision measuring equipment for the watch industry in Glashutte and the German School of Watchmaking. Interestingly, the founder worked for a time at the original Moritz Grossmann manufactory, a high-end German Glashutte brand you may be familiar with. At the turn of the 20th century, Robert Muhle Company was the sole manufacturer of dial gauges for Glashutte and offered a range of high-precision measuring instruments. By the 1930s, the company was also making car clocks and other clocks for military use. After the Second World War, the family company continued making precision equipment, including traveling mechanisms and escapements for the photographic and cinema industries. Muhle also produced motion works for pressure and temperature measuring devices. After reunification in 1990, the Muhle Company was once again able to be a private concern, where nautical timepieces were the initial product. In 1996, the first wristwatches were produced, and now, 25 years later, Muhle produces a range of nautically themed watches at its Glashutte headquarters. Interestingly, Muhle Glashutte is now the only watch brand in the German town of Glashutte that is still local family owned. With about 60 employees, Muhle is a small brand that makes somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 watches per year. This particular Muhle Glashutte watch is called the 29er Zeigerdatum. Let me parse that briefly. The 29er refers to the type of sailboat, I guess more precisely called a sailing dinghy, used by young German sailors in the junior champion class competitions of the German Sailing Association. And if you're interested, a 29er is an open class vessel, meaning anyone can crew it. Zeigerdatum, loosely translated, means pointer date, and that's what this watch has. Rather than showing the date in a little window at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or some other location, or perhaps showing the date on a small, difficult-to-read subdial, here the date is shown along the outermost perimeter of the dial by a half-moon-shaped indicator. The modus operandi of the date display does not interfere with the symmetrical attractiveness of the dial. Muhle states that the dial colors, an off-white with a blue outer date track, are nautically themed. Okay. In my first house long ago, I had a dining room with walls painted in a similar off-white color and trim in what at the time was called federal blue. I've always liked that combination, and I like it here. I called this my summer watch because, Muhle's PR notwithstanding, it reminds me of summertime, the ocean, and fun. Watches do have an emotional appeal or connection, and this is just one small example. The red seconds hand pops in contrast to the off-white dial, which just looks great. With its red, white, and blue motif, the Zeiger date also reminds me of the 4th of July. See? Summer. The second hand extends through the minute chapter ring and just barely reaches the sloped calendar ring. The minute hand does the same, but the hour hand reaches only to just inside the hour indices. All in all, everything is designed and implemented just as it ought to be. Applied indices give the dial a touch of class, and the minute track makes telling the time easy to read while being somewhat discreet. Speaking of discreet, I also like that there is minimal writing on the dial. The Muhle marquee at the top, formerly Nautical Instruments Muhle Glashutte, automatic at the bottom, although I wish they spelled it the German way with a K, which would be cooler. Finally, a very tiny Made in Germany at the very bottom. I think it's also cooler just to say Germany, but it may be a German law to express it this way. Finally, I should mention the loom, or rather the lack of it. The hour and minute hands do have loom, it's superluminova, but there isn't enough space to apply sufficient quantity to make much of a difference. If it's really dark, you can see it, but it doesn't last very long. It's not really a problem for me, as I didn't buy this watch for the loom. The 29er measures 42.4 millimeters wide by 12.2 millimeters thick. The diameter is a little wide for this watch, but the stepped inner calendar portion of the dial minimizes it. On my wrist, it looks just fine, which I think is aided by the relatively short lugs. Remember, this is not a dive watch. It's a dress watch, although it looks rather nice, and it's not really a sport watch. I'd call it a casual sports watch, if I had to give it a name, since it would be at home when you're sailing, I'm guessing since I don't sail, and it would clearly be at home at the yacht club. I've never been to a yacht club, but I'm not sure I'd wear this during active sports. The case provides 100 meters of water resistance, which is more than adequate for this kind of watch, and thankfully, it doesn't need to say that on the dial, in one or more units of measurement. A screw-down crown helps, I guess, and there are crown guards fore and aft of the crown. Nautical theme, remember? The case is brushed on the sides and the bezel is polished. Additionally, the sapphire crystal is AR, anti-glare coated, on the inside. Turning the watch over, the industrial quality Sellita movement, more on that shortly, can be seen via the exhibition caseback. The see-through window is on the small side, leading me to think that the movement has plenty of room surrounding it, and maybe the case could have been somewhat smaller in diameter. There's not much to see here, no special finishing, engraving, or special detail other than seeing the woodpecker regulator. The watch comes on a blue 22mm padded fabric strap, which is rather stiff at first. Fortunately, over time, the strap becomes more supple and easier to thread through the strap keepers. The movement in the Muhle is the Sellita SW221-1 automatic, but is slightly modified over and above the standard model. A Muhle-specific and patented woodpecker balance cock, it looks like the head of a woodpecker, is added, which is a refinement of the swan neck regulator that makes it particularly shockproof. The regulator has a tiny screw adjuster to allow very precise timing of the watch. I think the most important aspect and one of the primary reasons I bought this watch after my visit to the Muhle manufactory in Glashutte is that every watch, not just a sample of every 10 or 100 or whatever, every watch is regulated in 5 positions for accuracy before it's ready to be sold. Oscillating at 28,800 beats per hour, the Sellita is a solid movement, a clone of the ETA 2800 family. Sellita movements are generally considered to be comparable to ETA, for whom they once were parts supplier. The SW221-1 provides 38 hours of power. It also has hacking. The second hand stops when the crown is pulled out to set the time, allowing a more precise calibration to a known time standard. Although the movement is an automatic, it can also be manually wound. When done so, the winding feels solid, maybe even beefy, and the crown provides excellent grip to do so. Recently, I was visiting my local watchmaker, taking another watch in for repair, and I happened to be wearing the Muhle that day. Out of curiosity, I asked him to put it on his time grapher to check out the accuracy. As you can see by the printout he gave me, the pointer date was running spot on. The beat error, which measures the equal rotation of the balance spring in either direction, was a very impressive 0.1. Anything less than 0.5 is considered excellent, and less than 1.0 is considered good. The amplitude was quite strong, and best of all, the rate, on the average across 6 positions of the watch on the time grapher, was 0.0. That means that the watch was neither gaining nor losing time. Simply amazing, especially for a watch at this price level. So what do I like about the 29er? First of all, I like the overall gestalt of the watch. As I mentioned, I refer to this watch as my summer watch because the off-white dial and blue calendar ring remind me of the ocean, being on the beach, in a boat, on the water, or just the feeling of summer. Perhaps more importantly, I like the movement. Sure, the Sellita is based on a ubiquitous ETA, but Muhle makes some important modifications that improve the precision and style of the movement. Also, their quality control is outstanding. What don't I like about the pointer date? Chiefly the size. At 42 millimeters plus, this is a little large, but it's a sport or a sporty watch after all, so not a big deal. Also, the strap. Although it's attractive and the padding makes it comfortable, for my wrist, I can't quite get the fit right. One hole position is too loose, while the next hole makes the strap too tight. I may ultimately have to find another strap option. A NATO would seem appropriate. Overall, this is such a refreshing watch to look at, not to mention a bargain in the under $2,000 segment. I think you should check out Muhle Glashutte if you're looking for a high-quality, reasonably priced German watch. They have others I like as well, and you might like them too. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your watch friends, and subscribe if you already haven't done so. Be sure to click the bell so as to be alerted of new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.